Good afternoon. As always, I'll start with a brief synopsis of our last performance. As I mentioned after the game, I just thought it was good to win an attrition game, a game that we identified even prior to going into Denver under those circumstances, to play behind our big people on offense and defense, to win the line of scrimmage. That team had a pretty consistent business model over the last several weeks, and in terms of controlling the pace of games, the line of scrimmage, possession of the football. And I just thought on the offensive line, we did a really good job by the manageable third down scenarios that we were in, and the number of them, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, and things of that nature. When you convert 75% of your third downs, usually it's because many of them are very manageable, and that speaks to line of scrimmage play and staying on schedule. And the big guys are to be credited for that. And then on the defensive side of the ball, bouncing back from a negative performance regarding the run and stopping a group that had shown a unique commitment in recent weeks in that area was significant on that side of the ball. They had been through a lot of, change at the quarterback position, change at some of their significant eligibles, Christian McCaffrey and Anderson guys not being there. The one consistency that they had was in the offensive line, and they had played to it. And I just thought our defensive line did a really nice job. I thought guys like Larry Ogunjobi played really well against the run. Some of the other guys get recognized because their sack production and things of that nature. I just thought he was a real force inside and did a nice job in those areas. It's important, obviously, because we're about to go into a game that features a runner in Jacobs, man, that's the best this year and got 1,500 yards, and they play behind the wave that he provides, and the consistency in which he plays and they play in the run game is going to be a big-time challenge for us, and particularly anticipating the weather circumstances. And I just think that's a beautiful part of December and January football, the weather component, and we'll acknowledge that the weather could be significant on Saturday night and could play out in terms of how these two teams come together. But that's life in the National Football League, and that's specifically life in Pittsburgh. And so we won't run from that. We'll run to that as we prepare this week. Looking at the Vegas Raiders further, again, as I mentioned on offense, man, Jacobs is spectacular. He's got great pick and vision and patience. But he's got very good leg drive and power once he hits it. His power almost always falls forward. He wins DB confrontations. He wins linebacker confrontations. He's got short area burst. He can jump cut laterally. His lateral movement is excellent. He's good at inside interior runs. He's good at perimeter runs. Been fun watching him this morning, just as we prepare to meet into the afternoon in preparation. A lot of respect for what he's doing and what they're doing. Carr's doing a great job. Obviously, he's got Adams. They have a history, and that history is pretty evident when you watch tape. The way that they're able to connect, the understanding that they have, Carr's ability to put the ball in tight spaces. A lot of people have schematics in an effort to minimize Adams, but when you got quality quarterback play and top-notch receiver play, oftentimes that's even challenging, and you see those guys overcome schematics, beating two people, et cetera, with a high level of consistency. But it's not just Adams, man. He does a really good job of spreading the ball around. He's got quality eligibles. Waller and Moreau at the tight end position, particularly in their ability to work vertically down the field in the play-action passing game, is something to be reckoned with. Hunter Renfrow is one of the best in the business on the interior and winning interior matchups. They have all the components of quality offense: running game, passing game, interior people, exterior people, slot receivers, and so it's going to be a big-time challenge to minimize what it is that they do. On the defensive side of the ball, man, they really play behind their rush. Crosby, Chandler Jones, that formidable tandem. You can't say enough about those guys. Crosby, man, has got a ridiculous motor. He's been highly productive. We're not unfamiliar with him. We saw him last year and what he's capable of, and We need to fare better this time around, to be quite honest with you. Can't say enough about Chandler Jones and not only his body of work at the present date, but his collective body of work. He's a generational guy. He oftentimes doesn't get that type credit, maybe because this is the third team that he's played on. But boy, he's had a solid career in a couple of different cities. I mean, what he did in New England speaks for itself. What he did in Arizona by itself speaks for itself. And now he's in the process of doing similar things in Vegas. And so those guys have our attention. We cannot allow those guys to control the game, to not impact the game in the way that quality edge people can, particularly in those weighty moments or those one-dimensional moments. We better do a good job of trying to minimize some of that, like we did a week ago, in an effort to kind of minimize burns. You want to minimize the quality edge rusher. First thing you got to do is stay out of those one-dimensional situations, which most of those guys dominate. And so we got some work ahead of us in that area as well. The special teams component of the game should be huge. It oftentimes is, particularly when the weather is a factor. And so we're just excited about, being in a significant game and leaning in on it and the work that awaits us this week in preparation for it. And so with that, I'll pause. Before I get into that, though, I'll talk a little speculation regarding some injury. Terrell Edmonds has a hamstring that could slow him at the early portions of the week, but we don't expect it to be a deal as we get later in the week. Deontay Johnson, a little turf toe, Derek Watt, an ankle. None of those guys we expect to extend into the latter part of the week. As far as Kenny Pickett, I think the concussion component of where he is behind us. I think he's got to check a box procedurally, but if we were to practice today, he'd be a full participant. So I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Do you anticipate or plan on starting Kenny this week?
Yes.
All right, everybody else.
Have a great day.
You mentioned the Raiders tight ends. Your free safety look has, obviously evolved over the course of the season. How important is it for those guys to be able to play in a game like this where you're facing Waller and Monroe?
That's just one tool in the toolbox. We have several. The personnel specialization component of the ball is something that just has evolved in a big way over the last several years globally. And we're participants in it, and the package that you mentioned is just an example of it. But, boy, the number of packages that we have going into a game now relative to maybe 5-10 years ago is significant. And it just speaks to the specialization component of the game, and that'll only increase.
You acknowledge the weather and being aware of what it might be. Does it factor greatly into what you might do? Is it an alternate plan? Wait and see what happens?
I'm just acknowledging that it's a component of December ball. We got to be an all-weather group. I think everybody that lives here and plays here understands and embraces that, and that's one of the reasons why we continually take the approach that we take whenever we get an opportunity to work in less than ideal weather conditions. It's always our attitude to work in less than ideal weather conditions in an effort to gain exposure and experience. Those that have been here know and understand it. Those that are new, guys like George Pickens, we take every opportunity to acclimate them.
Mike, where has Mitch grown, or did he grow from what we saw Sunday from the previous 4 starts in September?
I think he's better equipped to answer that than I. He did a really good job of taking care of the ball and playing within the game planned approach that we had prescribed for that opponent, and he should be congratulated for that.
Mike, how do you engage the discipline of this team right now when it comes to getting on sportsmanlike with Marcus?
If you're talking about a couple of plays that transpired last Sunday, not good. But largely, I do feel good about the overall discipline of us, certainly.
Have you had conversations with either?
I'll leave that in-house. I'm not going to give you the pound of flesh you're looking for.
Mike, you guys have played some really talented receivers this year who've had success. What do you guys have to do differently to contain Davante Adams?
Play better, maybe than some of the instances in which you mentioned. When you got a guy that's dynamic like that, you work to minimize him and maybe minimize him in specific moments. But to deny him, I think, is, not realistic. I'd imagine most of the people that play the Vegas Raiders understand that he's going to get the ball. Yet and still he's gotten the ball and has gotten 11, 12 touchdowns. And so we'll throw our hat into that mix as well.
Mike, how much does it help Kenny that he has experience playing in Pittsburgh? Obviously, he's a rookie, but being in college here hasn't been maybe negative for kickoff. But how does that experience in cold weather help him in this game?
He's probably better equipped to answer that than I, but, I think that's an example that we often cite when we, analyze people in draft prep. Deontay played at Toledo. He's from Tampa, but he played at Toledo. That Wednesday night action it's probably got him a little prepared. And so all the offensive guys, usually there's a discussion of some kind in draft analysis of that exposure or what that might look like or if it might be an issue for them. Oftentimes not a significant decision maker, but a variable, certainly.
Can there be any benefit to Kenny having that week to watch the game from a side, maybe pick things up that you don't see when you're playing?
Maybe if you're working hard to look for one, my preference is to play and grow and gain the experience associated with the in-helmet perspective of competing. I just think that just where he is in his career, I just think that that's the number one ingredient for get better, but I'm sure there are some.
Mike, how do you grade Kevin Dotson and Darren Moore as a pair on your left side of your offensive line and how they progressed this year and grown under you guys?
I think they're arrow pointed up. I think that's not only reflective of them. I think it's reflective of the collective. They're doing a better job of communicating. The time that they spend together. I see them working hard at the things that you can't measure, the intangible quality that makes a group a group. They spend time together formally, informally. They're legitimately close. I think it helps that many of them are at similar stages in life, and so they got similar experiences and responsibilities. Nobody's got a bunch of car seats in the back of their car and those type things. They're young men that are evolving as players and doing so together. And I just think it's helpful when you have community in that.
You obviously have a game to prepare for Saturday, but obviously it's the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception. Can you just talk about what that means for this franchise and what it means for you personally to be coaching that game during that time?
Yeah, I was in Section 135 that day. I was 8 months old. But no, I think it's funny. Surprisingly, I probably met 75,000 people that was there that day. It's just one of those beautiful things in the history of our game, and it's humbling to be in close proximity to it, to work for this organization, to understand its impact on this organization, the career that it spawned in Franco, a gold jacket career, what it did for them that season in terms of changing the trajectory of that season, what it's done for this franchise. There are many things that make it the play that it is, and the most significant play in the history of our game, and it's just an honor to be in proximity to it, to know the man involved, to call Pittsburgh home, and so it's awesome to be a part of and to witness. But at the same time, we understand that we've got business, we got present day business, and the best way we can honor him and that is by performing, and so we're going to work extremely hard to prepare ourselves leading up to it.
Obviously, none of the guys that are in the locker room right now were born. Their parents might not have even been born for the Immaculate Reception. I mean, how much do you educate them, or are they aware of that going?
YouTube. That's the funny thing about this generation of guys, man. You can give them an oral history, you can tell them a story, and you can be really colorful in your delivery, and all the while they're looking at their handheld, confirming it. It's just, they're aware. They're aware of Franco. They're aware of the Immaculate Reception. They're aware of the significance of it. I just think that they're aware of a lot of things that we think they aren't because of their exposure to information and how readily available that information is.
Mike, what have your interactions been like with Franco? What do you feel like he's meant to this organization?
He's just a special man. Forget the player. Obviously, I never knew the player. I know the man. And just what an awesome representation of this organization, this community, a guy that embraces all the responsibility that comes with being him. I just admire his passion for Pittsburgh and young people. He served a long time on the board with my wife, Pittsburgh Promise, and his passion for others in this place and the Steelers is unparalleled, and it's to be admired.
The last 2 weeks or so, a couple of your players have spoken to not wanting to be a part of any team that would stop the streak of since '03 not having a losing season. How important is that to you, and how much do you sense it's important to them?
We hadn't talked about it. We just focus on this week. If you do, it kind of checks some of those silly peripheral boxes. We got a big game this week. We win this game. We do what's required to prepare to win this game. It answers all those little sidebar silly questions.
You were talking about Kenny and saying, I'd rather guys play to develop. How important is it for the development of young players that there's still meaning to your games down the stretch, that you have that
Hey, if they turn the scoreboard on, there's meaning.
Mike, it seemed like Devin Bush was playing really aggressive on Sunday. How have you seen him progress this year into being a better linebacker for you guys?
He's been solid. He's done all the things that we've asked him to do, and can't say enough about some of the things that you don't see, the communication things and things of that nature. He's just evolving as a young professional.
Mike, what allowed you to have that run stop last week, and how different? You mentioned all the things that Josh Jacobs could do. How different is the challenge this week?
Different groups, so different set of challenges. Probably in some instances, similar potential solutions. It's about us and making sure that we highlight the appropriate skill set of the men that we have available to us, and that we match personnel appropriately, that we play sound, that we come off blocks and do fundamental things well. I mentioned Larry O. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Edmonds as well. I just thought that he did a nice job in and around the line of scrimmage, and those down safeties oftentimes are significant components of minimizing strong running attacks. And so I would imagine guys like Edmonds is going to be big in an effort to minimize what Jacobs is capable of.
Talked about Carr a little bit in your open. He's had some pretty good games against you guys, even though you've gotten to him at times. What's he done particularly well in games that you've seen against him?
I really struggle to remember specifically some things, but he's a rhythm decision maker. He makes decisions largely on time. He can anticipate. He's got arm talent. He's a gym rat and competitor. I enjoyed getting to know him when we coached the Pro Bowl a number of years back, and he was the young guy in the group at that time, and he and I got a chance to spend some time together that week, and I just told him repeatedly, when it gets thick, man, and the game's on the line, you're going to be the guy in, because he was the young guy in the group at the quarterback position, and so you're either going to win this game for us or you're not. And so we probably talked about a few more game plan specific things than I did with some other people in that type of environment. And to his credit, man, he was appropriately ready. He delivered the plays and took us down the field and won that game and gave everybody the winner's share. And so got a good relationship with Carr.
Anything else?
Mike, following up on Ashley's question, did Deontay or Marcus come to you at all and say, look, I know I messed up on this?
I'll leave that between us.
A couple snaps you saw from Mark Robinson. What did you see from him?
Not enough of a sample size to, make any bold statements. Great for him to get an opportunity to get some play. Hopefully he gets an opportunity to get some more play. I know he's been doing the things day to day from a detail and professionalism standpoint that make us comfortable to be open to that, which is a good thing for him.
And you didn't mention Miles Jack. Where does he stand right now? Do you know?
He'd probably be limited at the early portions of the week, but I don't anticipate it negatively affecting his availability at the end of the week.
You said last week Pat Fryermuth was dealing with some foot stuff. Is that still an ongoing thing?
We'll see tomorrow. We'll see whether it, is it significant or not. But again, obviously he played, and we anticipate him playing again this week.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.